motorcycle is like you said, it's a 1944 BSA M20. It is a British motorcycle, and so in the British War, or the British military, the women were in something called the ATS, which stands for Auxiliary Territorial Services. And by the end of the war, over 190,000 women were participating in the war effort. My motorcycle is a 500cc. She is a 4-stroke. She has a whopping 13 horsepowers. Yeah, she's not built for speed, but she's built to be taking messages across the battlefields through all sorts of terrain. So what the dispatch riders did, they would carry signals and messages and orders to the different posts of the many women that were in the ATS. About 700, and I can't remember exactly the number, but only about 700 died. Most of them were dispatch riders because they were the ones that were out there in the field. They were going through enemy territory, trying to get their messages to the next post. And I just want to share with you a little story about a woman. On April 22nd, 1941, while carrying an urgent message to a command post in Devonport, Plymouth shipyards, an important port for the Allies due to its proximity to France's Normandy coast, dispatch rider Pamela McGeorge was caught in a bombing raid and blown off her bike. McGeorge's motorcycle lay in gnarled pieces, but even as Luftwaffe munitions continued to explode, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, continued to explode around her, she ran the remaining half mile to deliver her dispatch. Immediately after, she volunteered to go out again. For her bravery, McGeorge received the British Empire Medal. So these women, they were determined. They were not the faint of heart. Princess Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth, when she was a princess, she was in the ATS and she was a mechanic. And she was not afraid, even as queen, to get out and change the tire when her motorcade would, get a flat tire. She was right out there in her gloves and pearls. Yeah.
Can you talk about your equipment that you're wearing, some of your clothing, maybe specific things that would have been worn by a motorcyclist?
So the boots that I'm wearing, these are actually men's dispatch boots. Not a lot of women would be wearing them. They would actually just be wearing some shorter boots, and then they would tie up their legs with material. And so the pants, they are the traditional, I'm not sure what you call them, breeches. That sounds good. And so a lot of the ATS would wear skirts and officers kind of jackets. And so the ones that were out in the field, they would take a lot of the men's clothes and wear them because they were more durable and they could ride a motorcycle in them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. That is really awesome. So the United States Army, I'm actually going to step back a little bit and we're going to talk starting in World War I. So the United States had two major motorcycle brands. The first was Indian Motorcycle Company, the oldest motorcycle brand in America, Springfield, Massachusetts. And then the Harley Davidson brand out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Both were given contracts to supply motorcycles for the United States Army in World War I. The Indian with the 1000cc Power Plus, and Harley Davidson with the 1000cc J model. They were very equally matched. Both were used kind of indiscriminately, and a lot saw action in the dispatch role, but not so much in a reconnaissance role. These were not armed. Sometimes you'll see photographs of a sidecar with a machine gun on them. They really were not actually used in that configuration. So in the interwar period, the United States downsized its army immensely, and that included the tank corps and the motorcycle corps and anything that was kind of deemed unnecessary. We had a very, very small army going into World War II, and we were very much behind the curve of getting armed and ready to fight a global war. So the United States said to the two big motorcycle brands, Harley and Indian, for World War II, they said, hey, we need another motorcycle to fill our dispatch and recon roles. So they came up with a basically a wants list. Hey, we would like this, we would like that, this is what we're looking for. And Indian retooled their entire factory to make this motorcycle that was completely unrealistic. You can't believe it. The United States Army would ask for something completely unrealistic. So they retooled their motorcycle factory to make a 500cc V-twin motorcycle to compete with a 750cc BMW motorcycle that was being fielded by the German Army. Harley said, no way, we're not doing that. We're actually going to give them our basic sport model, 45 cubic inch, 750cc V-twin model, and we're going to put a skid plate on it, we're going to put a weapons rack on it, and some saddlebags, and we're going to submit that to the trials. And of course, it outperformed the 500cc motorcycle in every category that they had. The U.S. Army ended up going with the Harley Davidson model, and that's what I have sitting here. This is a 1942 Harley Davidson model WLA. W stands for 45 cubic inch, L stands for high compression, and L stands for Army. Now, they did make an export version of this model called the WLC, and the C stands for Canadian. So, the United States started to field these motorcycles, and they had this grand idea that they were going to take their horse cavalry units and convert them into all motorcycle units. Well, if you have any kind of brain, you can see where the problems are going to start. Motorcycles are extremely finicky. They have chain drives. Everything needs to be adjusted all the time. They're hard to ride off-road, cross country. The ground clearance, you can see we have about 12 inches of total ground clearance underneath of here. It's not very much. I mean, very, very small. And like I said, they're finicky. They don't act like a normal vehicle. It takes a lot of skill to be able to ride these things across country. So this grand idea of a motorcycle corps kind of falls on its face for two reasons. First, they couldn't find qualified riders. Second, the U.S. Army adopted the Jeep, which in World War II, you know, is one of the most prolific vehicles of the entire war. It can carry 4 passengers. It can tow an artillery piece. It can provide recon and scouting roles, and it can kind of do everything. And the total cost to the government was somewhere around $650 per unit, whereas the Harley motorcycle was about $400 a unit. You can see where it's not adding up. Where this shines is speed. Speed and maneuverability for a skilled rider. These things can get out of Dodge really quick. They can get in trouble, but they can get out of trouble really quickly. So what they saw is they saw the motorcycle corps disband, and they took these numbers and they started divvying them up to all of the units in small batches. So you might have, in like the 2nd Armored Division, we might have a total of 50 motorcycles spread out through the whole division. And that included the recon units, that included the headquarters units that would have dispatch duties. But where my bike is configured and where I'm going to focus the rest of this talk is on the recon units. So the recon units, traditionally the eyes and ears of whatever main force they're fighting with. And what their job is to probe as far ahead as they can until they make contact, and they turn around and they come back. They're not to engage. They're only to feel out where the enemy defenses are. Well, you can see where that's a problem, because now you're on a loud motorcycle and you're live bait. These guys were picked off like sitting ducks, and all too often these reconnaissance riders were killed in the first minutes of a battle. In its dispatch role, you have there's other perilous parts of that journey too. Like, say you get captured carrying documents. Well, that's not cool. Now they got your documents, and you're probably going to be shot. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my equipment that I'm carrying here. Unlike the British motorcycle, you'll see that there's not a specific place to carry a weapon. The United States Army said, nope, we want to have weapons. So my bike, if I can get it out, is equipped. Andy, would you hold this for a second? With a Thompson 45 caliber submachine gun. This was pretty standard for the motorcycles. We saw submachine guns, 45 caliber, and also M1 carbines were used a lot. And of course, the famous 45 automatic. Now, unlike other units, these were standard issue to every motorcycle rider had a 45 automatic pistol. Some other equipment that I'm wearing that's different than Andy is the United States didn't have any specific motorcycle equipment issued. They had stuff that was left over from the horse cavalry, but we didn't see that, come into play on any of the soldiers that I've seen in Europe. So Andy has really beautiful high boots, and those high boots do a couple of things. They stop the sticks and the twigs when you're riding cross country from going up your pant legs. Also, you'll notice that motorcycles are chain driven. They snag things like loose pants and such. Those are great. We didn't have those. So you'll see a lot of soldiers early on in the European theater just wearing their wools rolled up to allow some airflow. But you'll also see them wrapping their legs. They might use leggings. So there's some of that. I have a dispatch rider's case here. This would have carried documents and the such. On my bike, I'm carrying basic equipment, some Pioneer tools, and a basic crash helmet that's actually an armored crewman's helmet. It's just basically pressed fiberboard. And last but not least, I have some sort of radio communications, which is a BC611 handy-talkie. Now, these are really great, but they had a very limited range, about a mile, and this could only talk to another handy-talkie. So this couldn't talk to the main force in a vehicle because it's not on the same frequency setup. Very interesting, but did allow for some limited radio communications. So I'll give you one more quick fact about the Harley Davidson, then I'm going to take a ride around here. But that was that they made 57,000 total WLAs during World War II. And of that 57,000, roughly 30,000 went to our Russian allies. You will see these bikes painted in all kinds of various different colors by our allies. During World War II, the U.S. fielded roughly 5,000 to 7,000 total WLAs in Europe at any given time, and the rest stayed stateside. This particular bike came out of Poland in 1991. It was a Russian bike that was then restored back into what it would have looked like during the U.S.'s involvement in World War II.
And one more interesting fact about the ATS, they were the only women that were allowed to carry side pieces.
Oh, side arms?
Side arms.
Cool.
Thank you. I'm still learning all the lingo. All right.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you guys for coming out and listening to us.